Shanti Ekambaram, the Deputy Managing Director at Kotak Mahindra Bank, joins us now. Shanti, hi, good to be speaking with you, and thanks so much for joining us on this special occasion when we are celebrating the Women's Day here on ET Now. And let's just begin by discussing that, right? Our theme this year is Inspire Inclusivity. So talk to us about that. What does inclusivity mean for you, and what are you doing at Kotak Mahindra Bank to ensure inclusive growth?
Thank you for having me on the show. It is very topical given that tomorrow is International Women's Day. So at Kotak, we have always worked on the theme of diversity for more than about a decade now, even before it became an affirmative action at the corporate level and at the policy level. I think what is important about inspiring inclusivity is really first the culture. I think the environment has to be conducive, that diversity is important, the balance is important, and people are sensitive as well as believe in it. So our first thing is really to work on our entire people, mindset, flow, and ensure that we make sure that the diversity quotient goes up. Second, I think it's very important to also support our women as they go through their life. So we have, created some path-breaking policies for the new mother, including allowances till the child is a certain age, daycare services, which we offer both to the father and the mother, to single parents, right? Flexibility in working hours, which I think a lot of organizations offer. Tie-up for after 7:30 for women has to work late, specifically with with full security and controls, etc. So a number of women-oriented policies have been crafted to ensure that, we create this culture of inclusivity and sensitivity. In addition to that, I think learning, career prospects, equality, parity, leadership inputs, creating, circles of support whenever the woman needs it is, I think, something that we have worked on. Lots of work to do, but I think this is a journey. And when we look at anywhere in the world or in India, most organizations are grappling with this in the journey, just that different people are at different points in the journey.
Shanti, outside, of course, organizational behavior, I want you to send out a message to all the women who are watching you right now, that I think the first step begins with financial independence and how critical it is for women today to make their own money.
I think it's extremely important. Financial independence has three parts to it. First, be financially independent, which means you can work in an office, you can be an entrepreneur, you can provide services, but earn money. Second, understand and get into the details of what you can do with your money. See, wealth is created not by just earning, but what you can do with the money. Most women prefer to sort of leave it to their father, husband, brother, son, whatever. But I think the joy is in really understanding the nuances of financial investment and planning and actually investing your money. Thereafter, keep learning and watch the joy of what is risk management, how do you balance a portfolio, how do you grow your wealth. So for me, all of these, so financial independence, financial literacy, financial planning, and actually being involved in the nuances of your financial life or ecosystem is very important. And that's a message I want to give all women. I have seen a sea change in the last decade. I think women, apart from being financially independent, have also started, understanding financial literacy and financial, investment, but we have a long way to go.
Indeed, we certainly do, but at least some strides being made in that direction. I wanted to just deviate from this, and I wonder if you managed to catch the exclusive interview that we had with the Reserve Bank governor on the channel, and he spoke on a plethora of topics, talking about how the elephant in the room, which is inflation, has really gone for a walk but can return anytime. And he was very confident when it came to the overall growth trajectory as well of the country, likening it to a Tejas train. I wanted to just get in your thoughts as well as to how you're looking at the overall inflation dynamic in the country and how you're seeing the GDP growth and where we're placed.
So I'll start with growth and move to inflation. I think the last growth, percentages which were announced took everybody by surprise. I think we've been very clear that the economy has been on an uptrend, and I really must compliment the Reserve Bank of India and, of course, the government for ensuring an environment and providing sufficient liquidity to make sure growth happens. So I think we have seen growth being consistent. It started with urban consumption and massive urban consumption post-COVID. It has now moved to where you've seen consumption has stable and, while services are still very buoyant, and you have begun to see the beginning of an investment cycle. Government was doing most of the spending, but I think you're beginning to see the effects of private investment capex, which is just about started. So I think the economy is on a good track, on a good keel, and the growth seems very strong as we get into FY25. The one area which was a little weak was the rural part of it, but I think you're beginning to see a little bit of signs of it. The challenge really is the impact of climate, uncertainty and the variability that you have been seeing over the last 18 months. And that's what leads me straight into inflation. If you look at core inflation, if you look at some of the main tenets of the inflation, they have been steadily coming down. But food inflation is the one that is playing the variability game, and that depends on climate entirely, whether it is drought, floods, and a delayed monsoon or whatever. So I think inflation has been coming down steadily. It seems pretty much under control. The policies that were laid out are more or less working into the system, but the uncertainties are three. One, geopolitical tensions that can impact the trade, and thus we are still dependent on oil as far as importing and inflation is concerned. Second, food inflation, which is really dependent upon, the cycles of weather and whether there's likely to be any impact. And, continuing stable environment. So I think we're pretty much on a descending path. Some upside risks could come, but I think the central bank is watching it like a hawk, acting ahead of time, being very proactive. So I'm very hopeful that we will get to the percent mark.
Yeah, sure. Of course, the governor has been very proactive and so has the RBI. But just to kind of put it in context, Mr. Uday Kotak also recently said that too much regulatory guardrails could impede growth rate. And there has been these, recent issues about the active supervision that the RBI has been doing. Of course, it's called for in certain entities, but it's kind of put a bit of a concern on the streets that maybe there might be these regulatory overhangs that might come for the banking and the NBFC sectors as well. What's your view in terms of the level of supervision and the active vigilance that RBI has been keeping on the financial sector?
See, what you must realize is that the financial sector is very deeply and closely linked into the real sector. The real sector has been seeing a growth and stability that we have never seen before. So from its perspective, the regulator is actually being proactive rather than historically, which was reactive. And I think that must be appreciated and must be recognized. Let's take 2-3 things. The first is really the call out on the unsecured loans. I think the central bank was seeing that various segments, banks, NBFCs, digital players, etc., there was a heating up. And the idea of, increasing capital on these loans or otherwise is to just say, guys, it's going too fast. Put additional capital, be aware of the risks so that the system does not get into stress. Very different from in the past when the system would get into stress and then you would step in. Similarly, some of the corporate actions that have been taken, it is really to do with deficiencies on identity, deficiencies of customer issues, as well as deficiencies in the whole governance process. I think the regulator is more proactive, is acting ahead of time, and we have to be in step, with regulation. Very important to have balanced regulation, but I think it's just proactive steps.
Great to have you on the show today, and thank you once again for taking the time out and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Okay, let's